I want to welcome everybody to the March on Piscataway, and we have a very action-packed segments coming up for March. But while we're here in studio, I would like to mention that we do have the new public safety director for Piscataway Township, and his name is Keith Stiff. So, Keith, you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, first of all, Mayor, I want to...
And by the way, before he gets into talking about it right there, he wasn't just plucked out of cyberspace and dropped in Piscataway.
No.
So go ahead, Keith.
So, Mayor, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve the citizens of Piscataway. My name is Keith Stitt. I've been in law enforcement for over 35 years. In fact, this is my 35th year. I began my law enforcement career at the Union County Sheriff's Office, worked there for a couple of years, had a real strong interest in doing investigations. Went to the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. I served the citizens in Hudson County for over 28 years. I'm proud to say that I retired as a chief of detective. I was the first African American to ever accomplish that. Retired. Then I received a call. I was asked to come to Rochester of New York to help out. They had an incident up there that had a profound impact on the citizen and police. So again, I was asked to come up there and help out, and worked there for 2 years. I heard about this opportunity here in Piscataway. Wanted to come home, but also wanted to work in a diverse community as well, because I've been working in diverse communities for the last 30 years. So good to be here.
So you've been involved for law enforcement for more than 30 plus years. How has law enforcement changed since the day you first started out?
So it has changed a lot. And this is just my own personal philosophy. I just think that we need to think above and beyond traditional police methods, because every community is different. Rochester is different from Piscataway, different dynamics. So
and not only because they get about 100 inches of snow a year.
That's true too. But I just think that your police model has to be custom made towards the community that you're policing in. So it has changed. I just think that it's not a cookie cutter policing philosophy anymore. Every community is different. So you got to make the adjustment as a law enforcement executive.
So basically, in essence, that depending upon the size of the community that you're working in, every neighborhood's different in Piscataway. No different in a larger city where you have sections of boroughs or wards or whatever. Law enforcement has to tailor the needs of the individual neighborhoods.
Right. So it's important that we know the dynamics of our community. Policing means different things to different ethnic groups. And as law enforcement officers, we need to know and understand other cultures. I mean, obviously, Piscataway is a very diverse community. So as a police officer and as a law enforcement executive, we need to make sure our officers understand the different cultures within those ethnic groups.
What challenges does that present in law enforcement when there's, I guess, cultural differences? I know in some parts of the world, law enforcement and certain public servant positions are frowned upon.
Right.
In a culture that, they just, you're not encouraged to go that. But here in the States, it's a little bit different, but you have cultural differences that are where law enforcement is trying to deal with.
Right. So again, it's important that we understand our community. You bring up an excellent point. So when new Americans come to Piscataway, we need to make the effort and educate those new Americans on culture. For example, in some countries, you are taught not to look authoritative figures in the eye. In the police world, right, if I'm not looking in your eye, you think I'm being deceptive, right? So we need to spend that time and educate those community on culture here in America.
And I think that's a major challenge. The more diverse a community is, the more nuances there are. But then I also like to take a step back and view that as a positive step forward to career-wise for a challenge for the department.
True.
A positive challenge.
It's a positive challenge.
Yeah.
It's a way to recruit within that community. If you recruit from this diverse community, that culture is coming to your police department. You know, so it forces you to adjust. You know, like I said, there's different business model for every police department.
And like talking to some of your peers around the country, what challenges are they? I mean, Piscataway's not unique. What challenges do they have? Well,
the obvious challenge right now in policing is recruiting. Yeah. That's been a challenge. But I must say,
and I agree with that, because I know with my children, that generation, you know, they don't view law enforcement as a long-term career opportunity. Whereas I know I every chance I get, if I'm down at the high school or kids that are even in 8th grade, say, hey, listen, don't forget about local government service with law enforcement or public works or whatever, you know, because we're all getting older.
Right.
And there needs to be another generation that needs to think about the governmental end as a career path.
Right. So we have to do a better job at educating young folks on what is possible. You can't be coming if you don't see it. Yeah. You know, so we have to go to those high schools and have those conversations on what's possible in this profession.
And I think that is one of the things that we need to do, is get more into the school system.
Absolutely.
To educate the young coming up the ranks, whether they stay living in Piscataway or not, when they grow as young adults or not. I mean, more than likely they'll stay for a while until they go off to college, or
correct,
depending upon what happens. So, but that is like a big recruiting tool. Huge tool that I think that is a major challenge for the PDs around the country.
Right. So, you know, one of the most best feeling I ever had when I came out the police academy, and then you go back to your own community and police. You know, that's the best feeling in the world. So I would love to instill that feeling to our young people in this community. You know, take our examination. You know, be a police officer in your town. Not to sound cliche-ish, but you know, be the change you want to see. You know, have an impact on your community. But that's going to require some work.
And we had spoken about reaching out to the houses of worship.
Absolutely.
Here in town. Why the houses of worship?
So important. As you know, a lot of influence. Maybe Keith Stiff can't get to them, but creating that partnership with a pastor or imam, you know, maybe that could be my credible messenger, so to speak. So very, very important to have that relationship with our clergy community.
And we have a lot of faiths that are housed here in Piscataway. They call Piscataway home, and you know, it's just amazing the houses of worship that we have in our community here. And I think a lot of that has to do because we're also the home of Rutgers University. And the university tends to be an extremely diverse population, and that spills over. You do get a lot of students that ultimately end up having a career path doing something, and they end up deciding to settle down here in Piscataway.
Right.
And that leads to the uniqueness of our community, you know, through the corporate. What do you tell corporations and businesses? You know, are they part of the community when it comes to
They are part of the community. You know, when I was up in Rochester, as a community engagement event, we wanted to, at that particular time, our young people was committed, unfortunately, was committing most of the violence crime in the city. And I wanted to come up with a community engagement event, number one, to expose our young people to colleges. And number two, mainly to bring our community together. So I came up with an idea to bring an HBCU football classic up to Rochester.
Okay.
All right. That wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have support from my business community, because I had to knock on doors.
So why football?
Football.
And we're not talking football over in Europe. It's different than
No,
football.
no.
It's regular football.
We talk, and I was intentional. Our population, 54% of the population in Rochester are African American. So I was intentional. I got an HBCU to come up there, a historical black college and university, 2 teams to come and play a game. I thought that, again, to your question, why football? Football brings people together, you know, especially up there. You know, football is huge up there. So that was a way to bring people together. And then around the game, we had HBCU colleges come up there, and in fact, one of the school gave out 3 scholarships at one of our events. Yeah. So again, I talked about earlier, thinking outside the box, thinking above and beyond traditional policing, specifically community engagement. You know, so we did that up there. That was real creative and innovative, and that's the type of mindset you got to have today in law enforcement.
So that worked out well with the young individuals within that community. Like taking, you know, down here in Piscataway, we actually have a lot more.
Yeah.
We have a tendency of running all of our rec programs are free of charge, and that's our way of getting the kids involved. And that's why I always tell parents and students around here, I don't ever want to hear a kid saying in our town that they're bored, there's nothing to do. Listen, there's so many avenues, whether it's the library or extracurriculum with the school district and or, you know, sports. You know, if a child wants to get involved and stay involved with a good influence of coaches and things like that, the avenue's there for them.
Yeah, I got to admit, so growing up in Hillside, we was a little bit envy of Piscataway.
Yeah.
You know, you guys, especially your sports program, and winning high school football teams and basketball teams and very good track teams. So I just wanted to throw that in. We have a little bit envy of Piscataway. So, yeah, you're right. You know, get our kids involved, and, you know, and sports is everything. You know, and you and the right people running those programs is important as well. You know, so
and that's why off the record, the rec department at PD have always, you know, there's always had a lot of coaches through the PD with some of the programming. It wasn't by design; it just naturally fell into place.
You have to work together. You know, it's community policing. You know, you and I just left the meeting, and my second meeting, we all going to be working together. You know, they're going to be a part of policing somehow, but we're going to be doing some type of collaboration. You know, so you have to work together.
So if you're a resident in the town, what do you say then? What are going to be your expectations moving forward with the police department?
So it's always been my belief that you cannot do policing alone, and policing is tough. And I think as a director of public safety, I charge you to take some of the burden of policing off of Piscataway Police Department, meaning that.
Well, when you mean that, then you mean, well, listen, we don't want the residents to go out and do policing. You want collaboration,
right? I don't. No, I'm not talking about operational. No, let me be clear. But
I just want to get that out there. I knew what you meant.
Right, but collaboration. You know, for example, you know, we talked about the challenge of recruitment in policing. You know what? Help me recruit. Help me recruit. You know.
Just so the viewers know that it's not just in Piscataway, but nationally. There is a recruitment problem, and the armed forces has the same problem.
Same problem.
So it's not unique. I think it's a real generational thing that's going on.
It is a generational thing, but even though it's an issue, we still need to address it and do what we can to.
Because those positions still need to be filled.
They need to be filled. They need to be filled. They need to be filled. But again, that burden of recruitment, you know, I want to speak to our clergy. And say, hey, listen, help me recruit. You know, help us find the best of the best in this town. You know, so I want to share that burden of community policing with our meaning collaboration with our residents here.
Well, I think that's over the last couple of years. I mean, I know when the PD was trying to we normally would get our officers to alternate route. We might want to explain what alternate route policing is.
Alternate route, the alternate route program is a program where you could pay your way through the police academy.
Yeah.
And at some point, if you're lucky, a police department will hire you.
You'll get picked up. It's no different than somebody going to, you go to a boot camp, basically in essence for 3 months, 4 months, whatever how many weeks it is, and you come out with a certificate. And
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things is not necessarily people may not have the money to do that, but
True.
I always said that it's sort of like if you had to go to a community college, so to speak. Because I know in our town you have to have at least 60 college credits either way.
Correct. So again, but the challenge with the alternate route program is, the other 500 police departments in the state
are picking
those folks as well.
And that's the other problem. There's not that many academies in the state.
that host that program, correct.
Yeah, it's not easy. I think we're down to like 4 or 5 places in the
You're
state of New
absolutely right.
Jersey.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, there used to be, Middlesex County used to have an academy, doesn't, but there used to be at least a half a dozen to a dozen counties that ran academies, and they just don't do that
They
anymore.
don't do it anymore. But but once again, ultimate route is a one route, but also lateral transfers, and that's another issue. Other folks are looking for lateral transfers as well. So, but here's the good thing, and this is just my mindset, Mayor. It's going to be hard, right? But you have an opportunity to be innovative and creative, and really come up with something that no one else is doing. And so. I appreciate the challenge, and I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think is going to be the, moving forward in time, not just at Piscataway Township, what the toughest job is going to be for a uniform officer?
I think that...
Or maybe not that job, it should say task for a uniform officer.
That's a great question. Initially, I was going to say, police-citizen interaction always been tough for years, right? We need to get better at that. I firmly believe in the guardian mindset. A little bit of empathy goes a long way. So I would like to. I think that police-citizen interaction still will be challenging because we recruit for different communities, right? And implicit biases, right? That is a challenge. So I always think that police and community interaction always be a challenge for law enforcement. We good at the technology stuff, but what we struggle with, right? What you always see on TV, right? That police community interaction.
Now that you brought that up, I want to just delve in that for a few minutes and tie it in with social media. A lot of times now people will post something online and out there and say in a public venue, and there's an expectation with the general public, the police department must have saw what I put out there. Why aren't they doing anything about it? It's no different than government services.
Right.
How does that dynamic change in law enforcement over the years?
It puts law enforcement in a bad spot. So if someone takes a video, that doesn't mean that the police have that video. And unfortunately, sometimes we get a hold of that video when it's a little too late. And that's tough. I mean, again, this world that we live in now is tough. Everyone has a camera.
Speaking of video, we encourage, with the next door neighbor, with the community neighbor watch program, we obviously ask residents to pick up the phone, call the police department. We have a community police section of the PD. If you want to get involved in your neighborhood, that's a great way of getting involved with you and some of your neighbors.
Right. I love that idea. I love the idea. Again, that's sharing the burden of policing. Operational. That's sort of kind of operational, right?
It's sort of operational.
So it's sort of operational, but again, I love that. Again, it's about sharing the burden of policing. And that's a true community. When my first week here, and I was receiving emails of folks never met in my life. Number one, supporting me. Folks I never met in my life. And what can we do to help you out here in Piscataway? And it was so appreciative, and that's the type of community I want to be a part of. And so I was very excited about that. So I'm really looking forward to again serving the people here in Piscataway.
So I basically we've got a few minutes left.
Sure.
I know you want to reach out to have the folks work in tandem with the police department. What could folks do in the interim to make their neighborhoods feel safe?
Well, it's the little things.
We've had some issues in some of the neighborhoods where, there's been some thefts of cars, and it's not just in Piscataway.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. But I think there's a general expectation people just leave stuff, doors unlocked.
The doors locked.
Whether it's your cars or your personal, your homes.
Right, and you're 100% right. And some of these cars are being stolen because the owner left the door open, or they leave the key under the mat. So just be mindful of number one. In terms of your vehicle, make sure you don't leave the keys in the car. Make sure the doors is locked.
Or there's nothing of value.
That they could see in the vehicle. You don't want to get anyone, pique anyone's curiosity because you got something valuable in the car. Those are the little things that you could do. And again, not to sound cliche-ish, but if you see something, say something. Everything matters.
Well, you know what? In this day and age, Director, I'm just surprised how many people actually will not pick up the phone and call because they think somebody else already did.
Yeah, and that's.
They think, oh well, one of my neighbors already.
Right.
And it's just.
And what I would say to that, call again.
Yeah.
Call again. Don't assume someone else call. You call again. So that's very important.
I mean, the worst case scenario is the dispatch center. Well, we've already gotten a call, or we'll send a unit over. I mean, there's that's what everybody's on the payroll for. To go and show up.
Yep, and they will show up.
Yeah,
they will definitely show up.
Yeah. Last thing for the. What expectations you have amongst the rank and file, the officers now that you're just starting to get to meet?
So I think if we poll all the residents in this town, I think everyone want a reasonable portion of public safety.
Yeah.
That's not a lot to ask for.
No.
They want us to respond to calls. When we interact with folks, they want to be, there should be some empathy there. So again, it's just a reasonable portion of public safety. That's not a lot to ask for, and our officers will do that.
Yeah, and I think the general expectation is like when you live in a community, you should be able to feel safe within your community.
Absolutely.
And everybody has a lot of things going on in their lives. They may have kids, or they may be the primary care person for somebody within their family.
Right.
They may have 2 jobs or whatever, jockeying this around, and then when they come home or go away, there's an expectation that their neighborhood feels
safe.
Or their kids can go to the local parks.
Absolutely.
And play pickup games and not having some nefarious thing happen.
Right. That reasonable portion of public safety, and everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves that.
And the only thing I mean is that, just because Director Siff is the new public safety director, he's not going to single-handedly resolve the speeding in individual neighborhoods. No. He needs cooperation from the neighborhood because 99% of the times in a lot of the neighborhoods, it's the individual residents within their own neighborhood that are doing
we talked about sharing the burden, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we're just slow down a little bit.
Slow down.
One thing I would like to mention that we've had some problems as of late. That we have folks that when the buses have the door open, the lights are going. We have a lot of cars that are either going around or whatever for whatever reason. That's becoming a problem. I mean, that's the first rule of thumb when you're taught in driver's ed. Obviously, when that bus arm goes out and the lights go flashing red, you're supposed to stop.
Right.
Not go around.
Yeah, and that's the issue. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And if caught doing so, you will be cited.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I know we're going to reach out to the school district superintendent about, working with the bus drivers there areas, because I'm always concerned about that because, when a child's getting off the bus, that's their most vulnerable time crossing the street.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
oncoming traffic. So, well, I want to thank you for stopping by on Piscataway. I hope the residents look forward to working with you. You have an open phone dialogue with them. You're going to be going to a lot of meet and greets and
Yes.
a lot of public venues coming up. So you're going to be very busy over the course of the next year and change. So.
Yeah. So in closing, once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to going to all those meet and greets, and I'm real excited to be here.
And he's really excited because, in theory, it's going to be less snow than Rochester. You know, with all that lake effect snow that they got up there. In theory, it should be warmer, too. But we'll see. I don't know. We've been snowed. And with that, I want to thank Director Keith Stiff for coming on the Eye on Piscataway. Now we're going to go to some different segments.